Hello all and welcome to Crochet Designs. My name is Mary and I'm coming to you today with part 4 of our Sunshine Bright Blanket. Check it out. And part 4 is, ta-da! It is this gorgeous little Picot rise and fall Picot kind of look. Very gentle rise and fall, not a major one, just a very gentle rise and fall. And let me show you the original, which was crocheted using Tarndie yarn. And you guys already know a little bit about Tarndie yarn. If you're joining us new, please check that very first link you come to in the description box down below. That will be the Tarndie interview that I had recently, or that I did last week actually. And the competition giveaway is still on and will be on until March the 17th, 2021, midday. Melbourne, Australia time, by the way. That's lunchtime, if you will. And you will be in the draw to win some yarn from Tarndie Farm, direct from the farmer who shears it direct from the sheep. So there you go. How gorgeous is that yarn? And that's blanket number 1. And our blanket that we created is this one here, which we used, or I used, some Bendigo yarn cotton that, well, it's not really a cotton, what am I saying? Get it right, Mary. Some Bendigo Stella range that they actually no longer make anyways, but there you go. That's our blanket. I'll see if I can get a nice, I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Ta-da! How gorgeous is it? How gorgeous is it? Very nice. All right, so by the time you finish this tutorial today, guys, you will be at the end of your blanket. Now also, if you're joining us new and you want to make this blanket, you have not missed out, because I will leave a link to the playlist in the description box down below so that you can actually make your own Sunshine Bright blanket using the Sunburst granny square, like so. Very nice, I like very much. So what you will need for today's tutorial is obviously your blanket, the hook size that you use to create your blanket. I can't remember which one I used yet. I forget these things until I start working. And you will need a darning needle, sewing weaving needle, and you will need more organised pair of scissors. I'm not organised, am I? Anyway, what I will say just quickly, guys, is see these little picots here. I made these picots directly above the center of your Sunshine Bright, let's say Sunburst squares, directly above your Sunburst squares. All right, now that is my choice, and it was the same with the other blanket. However, with this blanket here, I started closer so that we can get those picots right in the center, whereas this one here, if you look carefully, the picots are kind of on an angle, whereas the other Sunshine Bright blanket, the picots will be right dead set in the center. So that was a little mistake that I made on the first blanket that I'm not going to make for you on this blanket. You will see right now that those picots are in the center of each Sunburst square, using stitch markers. Now, if you're not fussed about that and you just want to put your picots anywhere, by all means, put them anywhere. The other thing I wanted to mention is I give an easy version to the picots for newbies. If you are new to crochet, you can do the easy version, which is just single crochet, chain 3, single crochet in that same stitch, and I show you that. And also I give the normal picot version for the more avid crocheters, if you will. I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm just going to let you get started with your Picot Sunshine Bright blanket border. Good luck, everyone. Alrighty, guys, where I left you off in part 3, we did the corner stitches there where we joined the 2 together, yes, and then I sent you off on your own and I asked you to do 1, 2, 3 rows of your normal cluster sets, like that, all the way across, getting to your corners, doing your corners, and then continue along. Get to the other side and meet me there, which is exactly where we are at the moment. And away we go. All right, so all you're doing, like you've been doing in all the rounds, is slip stitching to join in your stitch marker section, like so. And you know this part, you've been doing it all along. And yes, you are going to slip stitch across, unless you're changing colors here, then you can just cut it there and then add your new color. Slip stitch across there, and one in the corner. All right, let me get that a little bit closer for this part here. All right, so now you are chaining one. So here's where it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be putting single crochets in here instead of doubles, and we're only going to be putting 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets, okay? Now a single crochet, if you're not sure what it is, just pop your hook in the space, pull a loop through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Firstly, you're going to pop a stitch marker in there, and I don't know why I closed it, and I do that often, don't I? I close my stitch markers. I'm a bit silly. All right, so there's 1 single crochet in there, okay? And now we're going to pop a second single crochet in there, which is hook through the space, pull up a loop, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2. And now chain 2, 1 and 2. And then you're going to put another 2 single crochets in there, 1 and 2. All right, now in this row here, we're going to be popping single crochets in our stitches. Sorry, I'll bring that out again. Let me just pull that loop up for you. But you may notice along here I've got stitch markers. This is what I want you to do. If you don't have stitch markers, you can do it as you go along, which is fine, but I find it a lot easier to do it this way. Now you can use safety pins, you can use threads, you can use whatever you like. Yeah, it doesn't matter. All right, but I like to use the stitch markers, and again, you don't need to. All you need to do is remember this. Okay, now the reason you need stitch markers is because you're going to be putting single crochets along this row. Yes, however, when we get to the center of our sunburst square, right, which is roughly around here, you're going to want to pop this, and I'll show you on the original blanket. Okay, you want to pop that right there, okay, right in the center. However, there is no wrong or right way of doing this, or right or wrong way, whichever suits you. I just find it easier if I count the first time, and that way I don't have to worry about it anymore. All right, I just have to pop in what I need. Okay, so firstly, see that first cluster there? You're just going 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now this cluster here, you're going to pop your stitch marker in the very final stitch. I'll give you a close-up so you know what I've done there, and that way you understand it. There's your corner cluster. You went 1, 2, 3, and in your 4th cluster set, in your very last stitch, you need to pop a stitch marker, and I'll show you what that is. Right there is kind of on an angle of the middle. The middle lands here. All right, when we do our single crochets across, when we get to this stitch here, we're going to be popping a half double, a double in the next, a half treble right flat bang in the middle of our sunburst square. Okay, double, half double, singles all the way across until you get to your very next section, which is, there's your set. So you're counting from your next one, which is here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in that 6th one you are popping a stitch marker. So it is, from here it's 1, 2, 3, 4 stitch marker. From here it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitch marker. Guess what? The rest is easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Grab a stitch marker, pop it in your very last stitch of that cluster set. It's always the last stitch. All right, have a look at that last stitch. Look where it lands. It kind of lands, there's your sunburst square, and it kind of lands on an angle, and the reason is because once we start putting our elongated stitch, we'll end up right in the middle there, and then you keep going on to your next set. If this confuses you, don't worry. I will be doing the sets all the way across this first row for you, so you'll know exactly where to pop your stitches. I just find it a lot easier doing it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 in that very last stitch, so that when I get to this stitch, I know that's going to be a half double. That'll always be a half double, okay? This is probably not making sense yet, but it will in a minute, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So instead of counting your stitches across, let's say for argument's sake, one row takes you an hour and a half. This blanket's for you. You're not fussed if there's a little stitch missing here, even though it will show. It will show and it'll be a little bit off, but you don't want to take the whole row undone, no? So instead of counting each stitch across, you're only counting your cluster sets. So you know exactly where to put your stitch marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, oops, hang on, we'll do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's the last stitch. Oh, right in the middle. I don't know what I was thinking there. Now here, right to the very end, you've got your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 last stitch right there, and I'm nearly splitting that yarn. That's better. Get it right, woman. All right. So here, when you put your half double here, you go half double, double, half treble, double, half double, single, and now you're counting your 4 across, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's 4 on each corner on this row and 6 in between. Again, this isn't necessary. You can actually just come along with me and we can work on it together. But I'm trying to make it easier for you, okay? So let's turn our work a little bit. Yep, and let's start again. There's your first one. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pop your stitch marker in that last stitch of your 4th cluster. All right, so when you do your set will end up right in the middle of your sunburst square. Okay, so I'm hoping all this is making sense. What I would like for you to do is to head off on your own, pop in all your stitch markers, meet us back here at the beginning, and I'll show you what you're going to do next. Alrighty guys, you should have all of your stitch markers in the round. If by any chance you didn't have enough stitch markers or you didn't want to do the stitch marker theory, that's fine. Just follow along with this tutorial here, okay? When you get to this side here, the end of this side, we will continue along in that side as well, and then I'll be sending you off on your own to finish the other 2 sides. Now, just a quick heads up. If by any chance you've done something different with your sunburst squares and your stitch marker doesn't land flat bang in the middle of it, it doesn't matter. The middle just helps it kind of gives it a pretty look, and it attracts the picot that you do on the second row, which don't stress if you're new and you can't do picots, I'll give you an easier version of it. The picot that you do in the middle here highlights your sunburst square. So your points, it kind of attracts people to the square, but it also attracts them to the point. So it's a kind of a win-win situation on your border as well as your blanket. And this is why I asked you before, you didn't have to slip stitch over your cream. You could have used one of your other colors for the last 2 rows of the border. Not necessary, and I didn't for the original, as you saw in the promo. So there you go. All right, so we're going to start. Get excited guys, because these are the last 2 rows. I mean, they're going to take a while because the blanket's big now. Yeah, of course it is, of course. And I've got yarn everywhere, sorry. Okay, let's get cracking. All right, so in this next cluster set you are popping single crochet. Oh, that doesn't work. Let's try that again. See that? You're going to make sure this is moved over because that is a stitch right there. Okay, there's your first stitch. You're putting a single crochet in that stitch and in your next and in your next. That's your first cluster set with single crochets. The next cluster set, popping your single crochet. So this part of your blanket is easy, your border I should say. Next cluster set, single crochets. All right, super duper easy. But the next one is going to change. All right, firstly you're going to put your single crochet in your first stitch of this cluster set, single crochet in your second stitch. All right, now where we put those stitch markers, you're going to take that out. Now you don't need it there anymore. So now we're going to pop a half double in there. So yarn over your hook, straight into the stitch, pull a loop through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 3. Okay, now you know how to do these because you've done them in our blanket, so there you go. Okay, but still, you know. The next stitch right there is a double crochet. So normal yarn over your hook, in the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, you know. All right, I'm sorry, the blanket is struggling to keep up now. I'm sorry, guys. All right, your very next stitch, which is right flat bang in the middle of that cluster set. Yarn over is going to be a half treble. Pop your hook in the stitch, pull a loop through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 1 loop only for now. Okay, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2, and what I want you to do now is pop a stitch marker in that stitch right there. Now these stitch markers that you're popping in, thread, whatever you want to use, paperclip, hairpin, doesn't matter, pop the stitch marker in there. The reason we're popping our stitch marker in there is because that's where we're going to be doing our picot in the next round, in the top of the very tallest stitch. All right, so your next stitch is a double crochet right in the next one. Your next stitch is half double. That's the rise and fall pattern that you're going to use in this round. Okay, that's it. That's all you're going to be doing. And every other stitch is a single crochet all the way across your blanket without the blanket falling off the table like mine just did. So single crochet all the way, all the way. Keep going until you reach that next stitch marker. Okay, this is why I asked you to pop those stitch markers in. But if you've forgotten, just count 6, I was going to say 12 then, just count 6 cluster sets over. All right, I should have done that for you, but anyway, sorry. I just did it with the first 4 and forgot about the 6. All right, hang on, we'll do that for you in a minute. Okay, so there we were here. So, oops, even though it's there, we started here with the half double. So it's 1 from here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're into our 6 cluster set. So take that stitch marker out right there. Your very next stitch will be a half double. Your next stitch, a double. And right in between this cluster set, half treble. All right, so what you're going to do there, pop that stitch marker back into the top of that stitch right there. That is the middle again, like there and there. All right, so you've got your middles. Okay, now we're going to do a double crochet in there. Half double in your next. And you guessed it, single crochet across until you get to your very next stitch marker, or just keep watching me go across. Okay, there we go, just keep going all the way across. Almost at that stitch marker. Oh well, not yet. Seemed closer, didn't it? Did. Oh, my eyes playing tricks on me. And there's that last stitch before the stitch marker. Now we take out that stitch marker. Don't get rid of it. You're going to need it in a minute. Oh, I'll just move it out of the limelight so we can see what we're doing. Half double in your very next stitch. Yes, you know how to do a half double. Double in your next. You know how to do these stitches. You've done them throughout the tutorials here on this blanket, and now you're going to do that half treble. That one there can be a little tricky. Okay, so you've got your 3 loops, yarn over, pull through the first loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2, grab that stitch marker, pop it in there. Again, if you don't have one, thread, hairpin, whatever you've got, double crochet in your next stitch. Oh. Okay, the blanket keeps falling off the table. I'm sorry, guys. Half double in your next. Single in your next. Now we're going to be doing singles all the way across until we get to the very next stitch marker. And the bonus about doing it this way is that you don't need to count. If you wanted to count each stitch, that would take you forever. It's better to do it this way. You know you're going to be popping it in every 6th cluster set at the end of every 6th cluster set. All right, that's when you start your pattern. Just making this is a lot easier than counting every stitch, yeah? Single crochet in your next. All right, so we're taking that stitch marker out. Okay, half double in your next stitch, double in your next stitch, and then you've got your half treble, which is, you know, relatively tricky. Pull a loop through, 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. Oops, nearly forgot to put the stitch marker in. All right, like that. Double crochet in your next stitch, half double in your next, and you guessed it, singles across. Whoops, and I'm just going to stop for a moment so I can adjust the blanket. Plus, I wanted to talk to you quickly. All right, I wanted to show you quickly what you are looking at. All right, I'll bring that out a bit. That's what you're looking at. It's a very gentle rise and fall. If I was to put a treble, like a lot of people tend to put a treble, not a half treble, they'll put a treble. If I was to put a treble there, you would find that your blanket would just turn a little bit on that corner. You don't want that to happen. You want it to sit flat once your blanket is complete. And also, the reason we're popping our point there on the side with crochet, when you are going in the round, everything keeps moving forward that way. If you were to start right flat bang in the middle and then do your rise and fall, you would end up on the side of your sunburst square, and it wouldn't highlight it at all. So your next round, your picot is going to sit there, but it's kind of going to sit on an angle like that. So it'll sit flat bang right in the middle. Now, in my previous blanket, I started a little bit later, and my picots ended up a little bit on an angle because crochet does turn. In every round, it gets a bit further over. That's what happens with crochet. All right, so let's get on with the blanket. What I'm going to do is, just for this row, I'm going to keep going, but I'm going to speed up the single crochets, and when we get to the cluster set, I'll slow it down. All right, so let's get going. All right, here we go. Almost there. One more stitch, and we're there. All right, now let's close up. Right, so we're taking out that stitch marker, popping our half double crochet in that very next stitch, like so. A double crochet in your next stitch, and your half treble. So that's yarn over your hook in the stitch, pull a loop through, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and 2 again, grabbing your stitch marker, popping it in the stitch, back to your double, and you know how to do that, and then your half double, and then your singles across. So again, with the singles, I'm going to be speeding it up for you so that you can just catch up to that spot right there. Alrighty, here we go. One more. No, I'm telling a lie. 2 more. Here we go. Okay, so there's your second last stitch marker for the side. We're getting close to the end of this side. Take out that stitch marker right there. And your half double in your next stitch. Double in your next. And again, your half treble. And you know how to do those now. Easy. We're getting good at it, aren't we? All right, popping our stitch marker in there, like so. Double in the next. Oops. Half double in your next, and you guessed it, single. Well, let's speed it up all the way across to the next stitch marker. Okay, whoops, yeah, I was getting too fast with myself. Alrighty, here we go. Last single crochet there. Nice little close up now. Take out your stitch marker, you will need it again, so don't let it disappear. Half double in your next stitch. Double in your next. Half treble in your next, and this is your stitch marker stitch, so take your time and pop that stitch marker in there. Alright, sorry guys, a blanket just keeps falling off the table. What I need is a bigger table. We're going to continue our stitches across with a double crochet, half double crochet, and guess what? These are all single crochets until you get to that corner stitch, which is a single crochet, but we're just going to keep going. Okay, so I'm not going too fast for you guys. I'm trying to speed it up. I'm really excited that the blanket's going to be finished today. All right, so as you see, I've done a single crochet in each one of these stitches, right? When you get to this section here, that's your last stitch. In here, you're doing the same as you did in that very first corner, putting 2 single crochets, which is 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, and 2 single crochets. 1. Oh, that was more of a slip stitch, wasn't it? I don't know what I did there. Let's try that again. Single crochet. Wake up, Mary. There you go. That's better. Come on, woman, get it right. All right, so moving your stitches over, you will see there is 1 stitch right there. Before you hop into your next one, you must get that stitch or you'll be short. It doesn't make too much of a difference, but it can make your blanket turn in a bit too much, and you don't want that. Okay, single crocheting all the way across. Okay, keep single crocheting all the way across. Don't stress too much about the corners. I'll help you find your stitch when we get to those corners in the next round. And we're in that last stitch right there. And of course, your very, very last stitch will be your half double crochet. All right, I just wanted to show you until we get to that one corner. Double in your next. Oops, I just lost my yarn. Sorry. Half treble in your next, like so. You know how to do that? Double in, whoops, oh, I nearly forgot the stitch marker. Oh, don't forget the stitch marker, Mary. Otherwise we won't know where to put our stitch in the next round. Double in your next. Half. And your singles all the way across. All right, so I don't think I need to show you the rest. You know why? Because all you need to do now is, see this row that we did right here, is to repeat this row. Get to this corner, do your, which you've already done, yeah? Get to here, keep going all the way across. You know what you're doing. Get to this corner, do the next side. Then, I'm sorry about all this flicking around here. Then, meet me back here, right here, okay? Get to your last 3 double crochets there. Don't do them. Just get there and I shall meet you up, Alrighty guys, this is where you should be at, right there. Alright, so I am going to continue that the last 3 stitches where I said to not complete. Alright, so let's blow that up a little bit. Alright, so what you should have is 1, 2, 3 left. Now I've got real close to this because we've got a whole lot of slip stitching in here. So popping single crochets in these stitches is going to be a little awkward, but it can be done. Here's your first one, right there. And the second one, really, really tight. It's very tight with the slip stitches in there. And your last one, really, really tight. Oh boy. Okay, so there's your next stitch. You're going to, oh, too far. There's your next stitch. You're going to slip stitch into that stitch marker like you've been doing all along. Pull it up through and pull it through to the loop on your hook. Take out that stitch marker for now. Oh no, actually take it out complete. Oh no, you need that one. That one there you need. It's the only stitch marker you'll need in this round after we get rid of these. Alright, so chaining 1, single crochet in the same stitch as your chain 1, and then you need that stitch marker. That's the last time you'll use this stitch marker. Yay! For the whole blanket, yay! Alright, so you have another single crochet there. Pop your single crochet in that stitch right there. And now you have your space. So what are you going to do? You're going to put in 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets. So 1, 2, chain 1 and 2, and 2 single crochets. 1 and 2. Alright, so initially you could have popped a picot there if you like. Alright, but let me just show you the other blanket. Okay, there's your picot right there. And here is your corner. I find that the actual corner looks better without a picot. If you wanted to pop a picot there, you could. I personally would not suggest it. It's not actually part of the pattern anyways, but you can if you like. All right, for the rest of us, let's all get on with the pattern. Okay, well, I nearly knocked the frame down there. Oh, the blanket is far too big. I don't know what to do. All right, here we go. Now, this row, even though we are doing picots in the top of these stitches right here, it's a basic row. All you're doing is single crocheting in every stitch. Now that's a stitch right there. See that stitch in there? That is a stitch. Make sure you get into that stitch or your corners will curl and you don't want that. All right, so single crochet in every stitch all the way across. Hopefully you didn't do your single crochets very tightly, because what single crochets do is they're an astringent and they tighten up all your work. Okay, so if you've done that really tight, that your corners will turn and your work will turn in. Okay, so hopefully you haven't done them too tight. I should have mentioned early on in the piece, I'll put a tiny little disclaimer up the top, that early part, but hopefully you didn't do yours very tight. All right, we're coming to this section here. Okay, the next one is still a single crochet. They're all still single crochets, yeah? Single crochet, that's your half double from your previous round. Okay, so let me get you a close-up there so you can see the stitches. Always make sure you're getting in your V's. Okay, so there's your first, that's your half double. You're still doing a single. That's your double. You're doing a single in the double. And there's your stitch marker. Now in that stitch marker, you're doing your first picot. How do you do a picot, I hear you ask? Firstly, I won't do the picot. Firstly, I'll do an easy version for anybody who's new. Now an easy version is single crochet, chain 1, 2, 3, and single crochet. All right, you can just do that if you like. However, and then you can single crochet across, which I'll show you in a minute. However, for the rest of us, in that very top stitch, we're going to do our picots. And the picots are single crochet. Let's see if I can get a very nice close-up for you. Chaining 1, 2, and 3. Grabbing your hook and your loop and everything, popping it through that side loop there, the side loop in the front, pull a loop through, pull it through to the loop on your hook. That is your picot. Okay, then you're going to pop a single crochet in the same space. So what you have is that. All right, so there you go. Single crochet in your very next stitch right there. Single crochet in your next, which was your double and your half double, and then single in the top of every single. Okay, let me just finish off a few of these singles so you can have a look at how gorgeous it does. Look very nice. Whoops. All right, so there you go. Have a look at that. Now notice how your picot sits flat bang right in the middle of your sunburst square. If we were to have started in the right spot in the first place, your picot would be sitting on an edge right there, which is kind of on a corner of your sunburst square. So really there's no right or wrong place of where to put the picot. I just wanted them to sit right in the middle of your squares, and we are going to continue because I would like to send you off on your own very soon. No, seriously guys, very, very soon. All right, in the meantime, single crochet across like so, and so. Super duper easy, yeah? Alrighty. So really the row is not that difficult. The only difficult part is that tiny little picot that you need to do. And again, if you are a newbie, certainly do the single crochet, chain 3 and single crochet only. All right, so we are here at our stitch. Okay, so you're going to take out your stitch marker. All right, so in your very next stitch, which was your treble, it still is, you're going to pop your single crochet. Remember newbies, all you need to do here, chain 3 and another single crochet in that stitch. Okay, for the rest of us who would like to do picots, and if you are new and you want to do the picot, take a risk. Chain 1, 2 and 3. Okay, passing your hook down the side of that stitch and the side of the stitch on the bottom. Pull a loop through like so. Pull it through to the loop on your hook, single crochet in the same stitch, and then single crochet all the way towards your very next stitch marker. This is why I asked you to keep those stitch markers so that you can find where you need to put your picots. Now, if you didn't put your stitch markers there, count between them, and hopefully you make it to the right stitch. Okay, it's just a lot easier to do it this way than to count, especially if everybody's done their squares differently. Some people might have done their squares differently. Okay, use less stitches, more stitches. Not that that's kind of possible with the sunburst square, but you know, you never know. You never know. You could have made a mistake 5 rows back and not noticed it. It happens. You could have made a mistake and thought, well, it's just for me and I don't want to change it. Okay, so it is better to pop your stitch markers in the cluster sets rather than counting your stitches. We are there at the stitch marker. Take it out. Notice how I'm not putting it back in. No, they're coming out and they're staying out. Okay, you are popping a single crochet in your stitch, chaining 3, 1, 2 and 3, and your picot. Pull a loop through, pull it through the loop on your hook, single crochet in the same stitch, and off you go. Okay, to me it's not a difficult round, it's just that picot can be a little bit trying, and I think I've split a stitch there. Let's have a look. Oh no, I didn't. It's just a very loose stitch. Be careful of those half doubles and the doubles after your trebles. If they're too loose, it's very noticeable like that one. You won't be able to notice it once the blanket's complete, but some of them can be noticeable as being too loose. Now let's have a look-see so you know what you're doing. I don't think you need to see me do the whole side, but check that out. All right, super duper gorgeous. Look at that. I love, love, love. So what I want for you to do, this is the easy part, guys, and you're going to love it, is to go along that first side. Get to your last stitch marker and I shall meet you up. Just do the side and I'll meet you up at that stitch marker, all right? Alrighty, so I asked you to do this whole side. I'm sorry, I'm getting sing-songy again. Sorry, guys. And get to this last stitch marker right here. Yes. So popping your, I'm sorry, you can take that out first if you like. Popping your single crochet in your stitch marker stitch. Chaining 1, 2 and 3, doing your picot. Hopefully you don't do your stitches as tight as mine. It shouldn't be that tight either, guys. And single crochet back in the same stitch. And of course, let me move that out of the way, single crochet all the way across. Now we're going to go all the way across to the corner. I'll show you what you need to do at the corner, and then you know what, guys, I think you can head off on your own and do the rest of the row. No, seriously, you can. Don't panic. It's okay. All right, here we go. We're nearly there on the corner. Okie dokie, here we go. Almost there. Okay. All right. So there's our corner. Keep single crocheting until you get to your very last stitch right there. No, there's one more. See, one more stitch there. And then you've got that big space, and you can tell, you know, that there's a big space in there. In that space, you're going to do 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, chain 1 and 2, 2 single crochets in the same space. It's very basic, yeah? Just give it a push over there so you can find that very first stitch in there, like so. And then single crochet across in every stitch, and hopefully yours are not as tight as mine that you come to. Oh dearie, what am I doing? Oh dear. You'd think after all these years of crocheting that my stitches would be a little bit more loose. They're not. They're tight. Okay. Oh no, they are. They do get loose. They get loose when I'm sitting on the couch quietly in front of the TV, you know, the usual, quietly, hence the word quietly. All right, we're nearly there to the very next stitch marker, like so. And there's your stitch marker, okay? Take out your stitch marker. Notice how we're just taking them out. We're not putting them back in at all, okay? Jumping into your stitch marker stitch. Doing your single crochet. Oh, too far. Chain 1, 2 and 3. Picot right there. Oh, the sun's decided to come out on me, which made the room nice and bright. Single crochet in the same space and single crochet all the way across your row. Super duper easy. I mean, you know, with your picots, of course. So what are you going to do? Oh, you're going to hate me. You're going to head off on your own. You're going to continue this side. Yes? You're going to get to that corner. 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets, move it over a bit so you can find your first stitch. Continue all the way across until you get to your very next corner. 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets, move it over, find your first stitch, continue all the way across until you get to our very first stitch. All right, so get to the last 3 stitches here and I shall meet you up. Alrighty guys, here we go. Oh, this is so exciting. Why is it exciting, I hear you ask? Because guess what? This is our final row, and talk about yarn chicken for 400 grams of cream. That's between using the, you know, join as you go and this. That's what's left of 400 grams of cream. I think it's about, I don't know, 2 grams or something. Oh, talk about yarn chicken. Alrighty, little trivia there. Okay, I'm struggling, guys. Look how big this blanket is. Alrighty, so what you've got here, I said get to your last 3 stitches and I'll meet you up. So there's your third last stitch, 1, there's your second last, 2, and there's your third last, 3. And I forgot to put a stitch marker in that very last stitch over here, so I had trouble finding it, but I knew it because I'm, pretty much know what I'm doing there. Now all you need to do is pop your hook in that stitch right there. Pull the loop through, slip stitch. You should have actually taken that out, Mary, but anyway, slip stitch, chaining 1. Before you go ahead and cut your thread, check your work, because if you have made a mistake, you have to rethread, and that's just a pest. I'm going to cut because I always check before I come back on air, make sure everything's okay. Now, before you go ahead and sew that one there in, which we're going to do together in a minute, because I'm going to show you another way of sewing it in, so you don't have, let's have a nice close-up, that little knot right there. Best thing is you won't have that knot when you sew this in. Personally, I don't like using the other way, but we're going to try it today and see how we go. All right, so what you should have is all of that, and all your ends, apart from the last one, should be weaved in. And if they're not, that's your big job, All right, so let's go back to this stitch right here. I'm going to do a close-up of this one because it can be a little tricky. All right, and I know a lot of people don't like the close-ups, and I apologize, but for this part here, a very big close-up is worth it. I'm going to take that undone, sorry, and I made you cut and everything. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, here we go. Let's just take that undone. I'm going to take undone that last stitch too, if it doesn't work for me. Yes, take undone your last stitch. All right. Before you finish your work, start your single crochet like so. Pull that loop through. Now, before you slip stitch, just pull through your loop. Yes? All right. It's not finished. You're thinking that stitch is not finished. No, it's not. This is where we're going to get our thread. Thread your needle. This thread has been splitting all the way through this blanket. I wanted to mention it earlier, but I didn't want to sound like I was whinging. Now I'm whinging. Now I want to sound like I'm whinging because it's nearly done. All right, so let's get a nice close-up of your stitch. What you have is a loose stitch like this. You're thinking, oh, it's not finished. No, it's not, okay? Your job now is to grab your needle. See that stitch that we're going to slip stitch into? Yes? You're going to go through the back of that stitch. So pop your needle through the back of the stitch. Where you would normally put your hook in there, you're going to pop it in the back. And you're going to gently bring this stitch over like that. Yes? Then you're going to come back here and pop your hook, let's try needle, into the loop there and do that. And what you have is that look right there. If you want to tighten it up, you can, so you don't see it. Yeah, pop it back through there. This I do, a lot of people don't. I do this for a reassurance that the stitch is not going to come undone. So you go back into the stitch again and you're done. You're done with that stitch. Now all you need to do, turn your work over and start finding places to weave in your end, and that's anywhere you like. I'm splitting yarn here. Big no-no in crochet. I know a lot of people tell me off for doing it, but that's what I'm doing. And you can't see any knots there, can you? You see like a straight edge, okay? So go back in, keep finding a place to split that yarn, and what I do is I split until I get down to a single crochet stitch. And then I literally go through some single crochet. I think I've gone too far, but anyway, let's go back in. Doing well. And then I just go through some single crochet stitches. Making sure you can't see your needle from the front, and you can't, so that's good. So pop your little thread through. You've gone one way, guess what? You're going to go back the other way. Different area, of course, because you don't want to unravel what you just did. And this is really thick, my area. I don't know what I've done there, but it doesn't matter. I'm glad. I'm glad it's thick because it means my thread will not come undone. All right. So what we're going to do now, in a minute, we're going to cut our thread And I want you to pop over on our lives on Wednesday and Saturdays. You don't have to if you don't want to, but then you can see our blanket in full. I will be talking about that this Saturday mornings live at 10 a.m. or Wednesday afternoons live at 4 p.m. Next week. All right, so you can have a look, see, we can have a chat about it, and have a chat to see if there are any issues that you had with your blanket. Oh, by the way, sorry, cut your thread now. Give everything a tug and your thread is gone, and you cannot see that little knot that usually ends up there. It's all tied up at the back. All right, ta-da! There you go, guys. Our Sunshine Bright blanket is now complete. Yay, very exciting. Don't forget, guys, to like, subscribe and share and do all those wonderful things that you guys pretty much already do for me. And don't forget to join us on Saturday mornings live so we can have a chat about our blanket, our Sunshine Bright blanket. And all I want to say right now, guys, is I'm trying to keep the blankets on the table. Gorgeous. Ciao for now.